All right, so we're starting with good news. Come on, I'm ready for it. Good news. Come on, guys. This shouldn't be a surprise. I ask every time, don't I?
I had my first walk-in in Florida on Saturday.
You did. Awesome.
If there was someone else in the office, I would have been screaming after they left. And I was so apprehensive because I'm new.
Yeah.
And I
Calmed myself down and
Which office
went through it in Big Pine.
Fantastic.
buyers from West Palm, and they're really excited. And I think I'm giving them a referral in West Palm as well. So I know.
Good
I'm
for
so excited.
you.
Yeah.
That's
West Palm connection if you need one.
Oh, good. Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank
He's
you.
actually used to go to school down here, and he's up in Palm Beach, and he's rocking it. So.
Oh, good.
Nice
Okay.
guy.
Thank you.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
Dylan's awesome.
All right, other good news. Hey, come on in. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Other good news. Come on, guys. Who's been calling their Hot 100?
I'm working on my list,
Good.
and I've figured out how to put it in my IQ office.
Awesome.
So
That's a
I'm
big
working
deal.
on- I'm getting organized.
That's a big deal. Anybody else have any successes calling their Hot 100?
I have a random person that I never thought in a million years would start working with me because he's one of those realtor hater people.
Uh-huh.
And we started talking, and we're under contract for a big piece of land down in Summerlin. And then he referred me to his neighbors who are selling their lot in Stirrup Key, and those people need to buy something here. So it's almost like a little
Wow,
trifecta.
nice, Terry.
That is awesome.
From a hater.
Well, even haters buy real estate, right? That is absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. So any more good news about calling your SOI or your Hot 100, asking for referrals? Any other good news?
I'm working on my note cards. I'm doing handwritten notes.
Okay.
We talked about that.
Yes, good for you. So tell me about systems. Who's got some good news? Who created and feel like they at least have one of their systems from the last time that we had our meeting? They've taken at least one system and created it out. Started at the beginning, and they've built out one process. Come on, guys. Tell me somebody did this. No. All right. So if you didn't do one to completion, tell me what somebody's done on that. On systems. Come on, guys.
I'm working on my calendar.
Okay.
That fine-tuned because I'm, me, all over the map.
Okay. Good.
Phone in.
Good. Is it helping? Good.
I'm doing your system because I'm a note taker and I have a list for a list for a list. So, and I usually took pictures of names and numbers and things with my phone anyways, but now I'm starting to take it from my phone, the picture, put it into IQ, which struggles for me, it's a big struggle, and then throwing the piece of paper away. It's very
Wow.
throwing that paper away.
It is, isn't it?
Because I have like 300 of these little books. Just, you know.
I love it. Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
Anybody else making progress? Systems?
I'm gonna beat IQ office. I'm just working on it. And just the other day before I got a new listing, I sent out, or I had revised my IQ office. Is what happened when they were put in from top producer. They went, all the emails went to the second email, so nothing goes out. So I've had to go through, starting with 2,500 people. Now I'm down to 14, and I should be 1,000 when I'm done. But I loved it the other day when I had a past client. He inquired about one of my new price reductions. Like, I swear, it just went out. I got his address changed the second before, and he responded like that.
You're
so
kidding.
I'm loving the IQ office. I'm telling you, it's going to attract people. Just got to get it all settled, all organized.
Of all the people who ended up being the biggest proponent of IQ Office, it's Wanda right now. So you guys.
Well, I've gotten some help from, is it Kelsey? Has anybody else worked with her? She's awesome. She'll send you a little video.
Good.
And a link to Facebook, and then you can watch that.
You're on
So what you're telling me, so that everybody understands, Wanda, you have committed to using IQ Office.
Right.
and you've actually gotten a lead from it.
Right.
Just,
Yeah, oh yeah.
did y'all hear that? Okay.
So who's Kelsey?
I'll give you
that does
her
the
info.
webinars.
I've got her info.
She
But
has like an IQ
yes,
Office
and
Facebook
she
page, and she
is
constantly
awesome.
goes on and does
Good.
like
But see, no
webinars.
one-
And
me
like the
too.
whole
even
thing
knew
is
she
just
was
IQ
there.
based. It's really
Right. Well, now we do.
Anyway.
Now we do.
Yeah, and
Now we do.
She's great. She
So,
really is.
you guys use her as a resource. And so, we're going to talk today about follow-up. Now, there's a reason that we're doing this after we're doing the systems that we talked about. So, it's really important. As important as follow-up is, your systems about how you handle referrals, your systems for how you are staying in touch with your past clients, those are going to make you more money in the nearest future. We can't ignore follow-up, but that's the reason I did it in the order that I did it. So if you are new and you don't have a system for referrals, and one of the things that I failed to mention last time, and I told a lot of you on the calls, when you get a referral from somebody, make sure you have a system for going back to the person who referred them to you. Have a system for that, okay? Handwritten note, phone call, whenever you're following up, because if they gave you one, there are going to be others. You can be sure of it. And I think it was like 6 years ago, there was somebody, and it was either at a Mike Ferry thing or if it was something that Brian had done, but there was someone who had created this incredible real estate business based on 20 referral partners, 20 people that they took to lunch every month that basically provided them referrals all the time, that they just loved on and stayed in touch with. 20 people who were their champions, okay? You guys, if you are not nurturing those people, that needs to be the first process, okay?
Can I mention something?
Of course.
Brian says this all the time, and so does Mike Ferry, that even though that buyer of your property was not your client, that we need to attach ourselves to them.
100%.
And I think that I'm probably missing out. I'll just share something that happened to me recently. I did a referral for one of my clients here up to Crystal River. And he went up there to buy a house, and that weekend he spent $300,000 cash. Well, guess what? He called me the other day, he wants to sell it. That agent hasn't been staying in touch, but I called her up and said, I'm gonna do another referral.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
Wow.
He didn't know who she was 3 years ago.
You use the same person?
I did,
Okay.
because she did a great job.
Okay.
Well, she did a great job, right. She did a great job transactionally.
Hey, I'm glad she wasn't following up. I wouldn't got another referral out of it.
Well, and that's,
Now it's probably worth $400,000 and I'll get a referral.
and that really is such a great illustration, because it's one thing to be a good realtor and provide great service, but it's a completely different thing to be a good salesperson and to stay in touch and to serve people in that way. Those two things, one doesn't necessarily mean you're doing a great job in the other. So it's your job. You're going to miss out money just like she did. She is missing.
He did like them. I mean, he liked the agent. Awesome.
Yeah.
But he didn't know, but he couldn't remember.
Right,
It's
right. So she clearly didn't have a lot of systems in place to make
said
sure that she,
she was keeping in touch, but
well, if he didn't know she was,
yeah.
Is
they don't
she?
They don't do email, so if she's emailing him anything.
so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I say that, so we're going to talk about follow-up, and as important as this is, guys, you've got to really be focusing on the things that are going to bring brand new people into your business, getting those referrals, nurturing those people, okay? So we are talking about follow-up. You guys have probably seen statistics like this before, okay? Only 10% of people will get back in touch with somebody 3 times or more. Think about that. 10%. That means only one of you in this room would get back to somebody 3 times or more. Think about how significant that is. And 80% of sales are made between the 5th and 12th contact. Crazy. So less than 10%. Here's something that you guys need to know. For every 100 people you meet, if you stay in touch with them, 6 will become lifelong customers. So I want you to think about this. You're calling your Hot 100. You're asking for referrals. And remember, some of you are caught up in asking for referrals for immediate business. But think about the value of just getting referrals to begin to develop and nurture a relationship, because for every 100, there's going to be 6 deals in there. Okay? That's the value. Some of you guys are putting off asking for referrals if they're not immediate. There is value in those. We need to pay just as much attention to our short term as we do our long term in our business. If you refer business to 100 people, 5 become lifelong customers. Some of you in here are struggling with asking for referrals because you don't want to give them either. You don't want to give somebody else's name and number that's a friend of yours. And I know that because you guys have told me, some of you have. Right? And if that's a challenge for you, start by practicing giving people names and numbers.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
So sometimes people don't want to ask for a referral. They don't want to ask and expect somebody to give them a name and number of one of their family or friends, because if somebody asked them for a referral, if they ask them, give me a name and number of one of your family and friends that I can give to this financial advisor or this person, they don't want to do that. Right? And it's the same thing, but sometimes we have to practice and know that if we give our name and number to somebody that we know, like, and trust, somebody that we feel comfortable with, we know that and find out, we need the experience to know that they're not going to abuse that information. We need to have that experience. And we just have to do that in faith. So sometimes when somebody's really struggling for asking for referrals, my first action item for them is to go and give 5 referrals to someone, because that's equally as difficult for them. Right? But referring business to 100 people, they're going to give you business back. There's going to be 5 people in there that'll do business with you. And here's what's even more staggering to me than the 10% who get back with people 3 times or more. 44% of salespeople give up after 1 follow-up. 4 or 5 of you in here would potentially give up after 1 time, when somebody might reach out, or you come in contact with somebody. You get referred to somebody, you reach out 1 time and you never try again. I was working with an agent who is no longer here, like 6 or 7 years ago, whenever it was, in the Key West office. And after one of the meetings that we did, she said, come here, I want to show you something. And she brought me into her office, and she opened up her file drawer. And there was a file folder. And in this file folder, she opened it up, and there was just nothing. There were business cards, there were open house sheets, there were names and numbers. I mean, it was a file folder full. And I said, what is this? She said, these are all the people that I've met at open houses throughout the years. And I've never called them. Never called them. She just couldn't bring herself to do it. And so within the 2 weeks following that, she started calling people, and she ended up with 3 people that she was having further conversations with. And as I remember, 1 immediate deal. And she hadn't even gone through the whole file folder, right? Think about it. She had talked to them at the open house 1 time, and then what happened? Nothing. Clearly one of those 44%, right? And she would not have identified herself as one of those 44%. Does anybody in here identify themselves as one of those 44%? No. But I know darn well some of you have done this.
From time to time.
Probably much more often than we'd like to admit, okay? But we got to know 5th and 12th contact. So when I say 5th and 12th contact, how many of you get a little bit squirrely and think, ugh, that's a lot of contact with somebody? Jonathan, yeah? I mean, it's kind of it feels like a lot, doesn't it? We're going to talk about that. Yeah. Might not for you, Wanda. You're married to Bob, for crying out loud. Like that, I get it. But for other people, right? So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the guidelines that you need to be looking at when you're thinking about following up with people, okay? How many of you are asking how somebody wants to be followed up with? So we've got to be doing that 100% of the time. Because half the time when we pause about following up, we're like, do I email them? Do I text? Should I call? If you've asked them, you already know the answer to that. Okay? Ask them. Bring value to every conversation. How many of you struggle with this? Chris? Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell you, part of what's going to drive your ability to bring value is two things. One is being clear on what your brand is, and the other is getting to know these people, asking questions, learning more about them. So in other words, the third point here is asking the prospect what they like to do for fun, or finding out something about them. How much easier it is. The people it's hard to bring value to is this just person who you know their name and you know that they might own a house, or that they were in their pajamas looking up a house on Zillow. It's very difficult to bring value to somebody like that when all you basically know is their name and their gender. Makes it very difficult, doesn't it? So that's a sign that we're not having great conversations sometimes with people. And being clear on your branding. How many of you really, if you hadn't done the branding exercise before, you went ahead and did it this past 2 weeks? Did anybody do that? Alina, good. You care to share the common words?
Sure. Upbeat, enthusiastic. Loyal came out a lot. And caring.
Awesome. How do you feel about those three?
Good.
Yeah?
Problem solver came out.
Okay. So as you think about those, what kind of thoughts does it bring up for you as far as how you can bring value to somebody?
They're not business.
Yeah. So that immediately says, I don't really need to focus maybe so much on numbers, right? They're not going to be as interested in some of those things that maybe an investor might, or somebody like that. Am I right? Okay. So if you continue digging in there, you're going to really be able to find some things that really are going to resonate with people, right?
Well, I think it depends on who you pick to ask.
Of course.
You know,
Of course.
because I asked one of my neighbors, well, two of my neighbors, another is a friend, well, two are friends, and two are past clients. But they all came up with
the same thing, same thing. Isn't it amazing though? Which is what they're saying to you though, Alina, is those are the things that they really valued that stood out for them. Okay? And you could probably ask even your investors that you may have done business with, and I'll bet you the words don't change very much. And I love Josh, but I really doubt Josh would have had any of those words.
Enthusiastic.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? And it has nothing to do with, like, it could have been some of his investors, and it could have been some of your investors, but the value that you brought to those people, why they chose you, why they like doing business with you, is completely different than why they would be working with Josh, right? And so you really need to leverage that. That's important. People want to know that you care, and I got to tell you, that loyalty really sends a message. How important is follow-up for you with your sphere of influence, with your past clients, when loyalty is one of those 3 words, Elena?
Very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they feel that loyalty that you have to them, and I'll bet you they feel that loyalty to you, which means that tells me you've got a network that's going to give you a lot of business. Okay? But that's absolutely something that you cannot ignore, and you really have to leverage that. Okay? That's awesome. Does everybody see how that we're coming back to that branding piece and how that can bring value to the conversations? Okay? All right. How many of you have a process for adding follow-up conversations either into your calendar or in IQ Office? Consistently. It happens every time, for the most part. I mean, we'll say,
Calendar.
okay, good. How do you do yours?
The team that I work on, we use Sync.
Okay.
So, I mean, every time we have a conversation, we put notes in and immediately set a follow-up based on it.
Perfect. Perfect. Who else said they did? Was it you? How do you do it?
Basically the same way Caitlin does with IQ.
Okay.
Put in notes of email, text, phone conversation with an immediate scheduled follow-up. And with closings, I do my 1 day, 1 week, 1 month,
Perfect.
3 months, 6 months. I'll write it down on my calendar.
Perfect. Now, what I would say is, I love it, but you know I'm not a big fan of to-dos in your calendar, right? So I would encourage you to make sure that you have in every week some dial time, some follow-up dial time, because what's much easier for you to do is to take that when you know it's 1 week or whatever, when you go to that week, find that follow-up dial time and put their name and number in that calendar event, right? Yeah. Is that making sense? And so let's just say you want to follow up with somebody next week. If next week you know you have an hour blocked for follow-up calls, instead of just putting them randomly next week, you go to where those follow-up calls are and put their name and number in that calendar event. We're skipping a to-do list and we're going right to, this is when I'm going to call them.
Okay, I thought that's what you said not to do.
We don't want a to-do list. We want to take the things that are in our to-do list and put a time in the calendar for them. And this skips that step for you. It also makes it so that you're less likely to forget or not do it. Because if you've ever put something on your calendar and you do, well, I'm going to put it at 6 o'clock just as a reminder that sometime today I'm going to have to call these people. Well, if you forget, you never end up moving that thing, or, you know, and then it's lost. You go to the next week and you've forgotten, and then if you forget this one, then there's no follow-up ever scheduled. That's how people fall through the cracks. So what I'm saying is, instead of putting it on a to-do list, put it into your calendar during a specific time that you know you're going to be dialing. Okay?
On IQ Office, so you could set it up like from 3 to 4, and that reminder would have all the people.
Yes. Exactly.
So
that's what you want to do.
Instead of, like, I know the way I've had it set up, it's like it's annoying.
It's
So-
just this task
Right, but
list.
you could put it all 3 to 4 on Friday, I'm gonna call.
Yes, yes, yes. So much better.
With that, like, I used to go from like day to day, so every day I'd get on Sync. There might be 5, 0, or 35 people to follow up with, which was that you were saying kind of put you everywhere. So now I like pick a certain day of the month, and that's where my follow-up falls up on. And I know, like, on the 15th, that's what I'm going to do.
I love it.
It makes it way easier.
Much easier, right? And you get it all done. You don't have these random people that you've skipped because, oh, I'm showing property, and oh, yeah, like, yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Awesome. Is this clicking with everybody? And then obviously ending every conversation with a clear next step. And I know we intend to do this, but I think this is just something we always have to get, because sometimes we know the next step, but we don't tell them what the next step is going to be, okay? And if you've ever done this, I know I have, I know what the next step is and I didn't tell them. So when the next step comes up and I know I haven't told them, then I'm like, ooh, they don't know I'm calling. I wonder if this is actually too soon. This was just my decision. Have y'all ever done that? Yeah, you start second guessing yourself. If you tell them the next step, if you tell them the time frame, they're either going to say yes or no, and then you're going to have a lot more confidence. You're not going to start to second guess yourself. Your mind isn't going to start playing tricks on you. Does that make sense? So tell them what your next step is going to be, or at least ask, okay? All right, so oftentimes, the reason I'm putting this up here is oftentimes we get caught up. And we think, well, we either got to email them or we got to call them. Right? That's kind of boring when we got all kinds of different things that we can do and tools to use for follow-up. Okay? Handwritten cards, e-cards. We've got social media, we've got email, we've got text, we've got phone calls. Okay?
Does anybody even use LinkedIn?
I will tell you, real estate is probably uses it least of any industry that I know. I tell you, I have a lot of traction with LinkedIn. I have a lot of luck with LinkedIn. I use it a lot. Real estate is probably what I would say using it the least. But what I would say here is there are people via LinkedIn, because you don't have people, the people that come down here and buy a second home and they're paying cash for $1 million property, a lot of times they're a business owner, a lot of times they're on LinkedIn. They are, you know, in that world. So it's not completely foreign, but I find it isn't used very much here. Get creative. Think about your brand and get creative. Who was talking about sending handwritten note? Yeah, I love that. Does anybody else consistently send handwritten notes? Good, but look, that's only 3 of you in this room.
One of my first clients I got, I was door knocking like 16 years ago, and they let me in to look at their pool and property, and I sent a note, and they're still my clients today.
It's crazy.
I had their business listed, it didn't sell, it still hasn't sold, but when they sell that business, I get the house sale.
Yeah.
One handwritten note.
Yes. When I set up a workshop and I go into an office and I'm going to talk to the team, as soon as I set it up, I send a handwritten note. Well, my assistant writes it out, but they get a handwritten note. But you'd be amazed at how many times I go into that manager's office and the handwritten note is right there, or it's posted on the board. People just don't do that. They also get emails. I also will send a text before. I also connect with them on LinkedIn. But think about it. That's a lot of different ways to connect with somebody, right? And that handwritten note is meaningful, yes.
Do you ever include portions of your personal life? Like last year I did Christmas cards, like with our family's picture on it, nothing crazy, but you always hear tell them your why, and I feel like a lot of my brand, and in our conversations I think you figured that out. This kind of, my family's a big part of my business at the same time. Is that something you'd recommend to do or keep it separate?
Based on your brand, that's what I would say.
Okay.
For me, I don't incorporate too much of that. It's a little different, okay? But that's not necessarily what my brand is right now.
It wouldn't be a bunch of strangers. It would be kind of like the past clients, people I work with.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's really your brand. Like, I don't think Josh, he's more likely to put a political candidate in his Christmas card than maybe his family. I don't know. I'm picking on Josh today.
We are so polar opposite, Josh and I think that's why our team works.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm the more cozy person.
Absolutely.
And he's the analytical.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
but I use that to illustrate. It would be weird for Josh to do that.
Yeah, it would be.
It would be weird, you know, but it wouldn't be for you. It just wouldn't be, right? And that's why some people can get away with using a little bit more humor than others. Some people, that would be weird to do something that was humorous. right? It really comes back to your brand. You know, Alina's talking about caring, right? There's so many things within that you can do that you would not do if that wasn't part of your brand, okay? So again, make sure that you're clear on that. But yeah, any other questions? How many of you think about this? How many of you now, this should be part of when you go into IQ office and let's say your process is I had a call, maybe what your next action item is to send a handwritten note. You can also put that in the task, right? And then once you send the handwritten note, the next one might be another phone call or another email. But be creative. Quit thinking about it only has to be a call or it only has to be an email. Get creative, guys. Okay? E-cards. Right? I'll tell you another thing. I talked to you guys about this one time. Did anybody remember what I was talking about curating content? Do you guys remember me talking about this just briefly? Okay, does anybody know how to curate content? Do you know what I mean when I say that even?
No.
Okay, so when we're talking about bringing value, sometimes we're like, I want to bring value, but I don't even know what I have at my disposal that I could share with them. Okay, so you guys can all go into Google and you can set up a Google alert. Okay, go and set up a Google alert. And in your Google alert, now you can also do this if you've got a Mac with the news or whatever, you can set up those things that you want it to. It's like personalizing news, personalizing articles. So what happens is you set up a Google alert and tell it what topics you want to know and get recent articles about. Okay? So if you did home staging, I don't know, just making up a topic here, if you put that in your Google alert, every morning when you wake up, there's going to be, if there have been any articles out there in the world of the internet that have been published or written on home staging, it will pick it up and it'll give you the headline and you can choose to read it or not. You can choose to share it or not. What an easy way. You don't have to go searching for stuff, right? You can choose whatever topic you want and you will see the next day. You can even, I would even encourage you, like I have certain people that I have Google alerts for. Because I want to know what they're doing, or I know if they've written something, I want to see it. I want to know it. And then what I will oftentimes do is I will save those articles, or I will say, hey, this is a great article. Nikki, please send it to this group of people. And we send it and say, hey, was just thinking about you. Thought you might enjoy this. Period. Now, I might send that to 25 people, but they each one think I sent it just to them. Right? That's me bringing a lot of value, and it took me no time at all. Okay? So if you have trouble doing that, let me know. I might have you call Nikki, but...
You can also set it to do your name, so you can see if you're out there at all, if there's any new reviews, anything.
There is an Angie Moss who plays softball, by the way.
There's a Caitlin McKinney that plays softball.
Yes.
College.
So I get these little things about this Angie Moss that did all this cool stuff in softball. Okay. Because I have my name on there too. I always recommend you put your name in there too, just so that you know. But yeah. But really, that is something that you can do to provide value. Think about it. How easy is that?
Cards, Angie, because my family was really easy. You know, they're just, I'm keeping in touch with a business card. But when I'm coming to people that I'm just meeting and I still want to reach out and send them something, what do you recommend? How do you, hi, I'm thinking about you. I'm here for your real estate needs, blah, blah, blah. Here's a card, refer me. What are your thoughts?
So in that case, so we're going to talk, let me just go through a little bit more and I think you'll have some good answers, okay? All right, questions about this. Anybody willing to say right here and now that they're going to get a little bit more creative than phone calls and emails with their follow-up? Okay, good. I've done my job. Done my job. Okay, let's talk about texting. Does anybody feel weird about texting sometimes? A little bit? No?
The only thing I don't like about it is sometimes content is lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a whole nother topic, Wanda.
But there are certain people, I mean, I'm dealing with a lady right now, and she's here with her kids, and she does not want
Yeah. Well, again, it comes back to asking people, okay? Right. But here's some interesting statistics, okay? Since 2014, people using text messages has increased 64%. It's very, very common. And a lot of times, 61% of people say, hey, listen, if it's during work hours, just text me. Okay? A lot. But again, it comes back, we got to be asking in order to know this. Okay? 95% of texts from businesses are read within 3 minutes. 3 minutes. And the average response time from a text is only 90 seconds.
For my sister, it's 5.
Yeah, well. Sometimes I'm like, how could they have responded so quickly? I don't even think I, like, pushed the send button yet. It's crazy.
And it's a paragraph.
Yeah. It's like, how did they do that? I know. But I say this because there was a very short time ago that people were a lot less likely to want to send text, and they felt a little bit more uncomfortable about it. But here's the thing that I want to go into a little bit more depth about texting, because there are places that texting is perfect, and there are things around texting that you need to be aware of, okay? Texting a prospect cold, and I would say this includes Zillow leads, okay? If anybody's on Zillow, they might call and they don't get an answer, so they immediately send a text. That is really probably not going to be effective. This is not the time to text, okay? Texting cold, it actually decreases the chances of contact by 39%. You know why? They know who you are, and they're going to call or ID you, okay? And because you can't not tell them who you are in the text. It's different than leaving a mystery message on a voicemail, isn't it? For those of you who know that term that I've used with you. So you don't want to text somebody when you haven't had prior contact with them, okay? Making sure that you are texting during business hours. Come on, people. Most of us do this. Now, unless you're in contract negotiations and if you had that conversation. But we can't assume that somebody doesn't get their text messages if we decide to text them at whatever time in the night, okay? I am not of the opinion that we should send texts with sales communication, okay? That's just not something that I think makes sense here, especially for you guys, okay? And there are some weird laws about the do not call and all that stuff, but texting 3 or more purposeful text messages. Do you see the statistic? After contact has been made, remember, not doing it cold, after you talk to them, and if you have had 3 or more purposeful texts with them, that can increase your conversion rate by 328%. Remember how I talked about, we're talking about developing and nurturing relationships? You sending this text message after you've had a conversation with them, this is just more time they are investing in the relationship with you, right? So this has taken no time at all, but it's got to be purposeful, and all of a sudden, you've talked to them once, you've had 3 or 4 text messages to them, all of a sudden, you've been in contact with them 4 or 5 times. When is the most likely when the sale is made? Between the 5th and the 12th contact, right? Please do not use abbreviations when you're texting clients. There are some of you that can use a little GIF for, you know, an emoji or whatever, but most of you, please stay away from that, at least at the beginning. Even the most benign ones, they just send a different kind of message. And remember, these are still clients. These are still people that we are doing business with, okay? I've seen some really crazy stuff. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now that's suggestive.
Yes.
I think so blind I can't even see what the faces are saying. I go, are they winking at me? Are they crying? What?
I know. I can't ever make it big enough to see, like, what does that one mean? Yeah, exactly. And really, keep texts for brief interactions, okay? I don't know about you, but I see those texts that come in twice. Like you're like, first of all, they never come in order. So you start to read the text and you're like, wait, this is the second one. No, this is the first one.
Those are the ones that come from IQ off.
Yeah, I am not a fan. I have not yet found a program that sends bulk text messages that I think that I like. That's just me. I think that they lose a little bit of the personal element, but
Well, it comes backwards.
yeah, a lot of them do that when they're too long. And that happens even if you're regularly sending one too. It can come in a weird order. So, all right, questions about texting in general. I just thought these would be some really good statistics to share with you guys. Okay. Hi, Elaine. All right, so let's talk about the mistakes that people make. Now, I know nobody ever makes this first one because you guys don't tend to be you guys tend to be a little more timid, but every once in a while we still do this. And sometimes it's just because we didn't take them off a drip campaign or whatever. But there are people who say, please don't contact me again. Don't we have that happen? But then we still keep contacting them. Well, but I still think they would really like to see this house. You guys just have to not do that, because you can take what is used to be sort of a neutral relationship and turn it bad real quick. Waiting too long to follow up or waiting too long between points of contact. We know why this is bad on the surface, but why is it bad for your head when you've done this? Tell me what that cycle happens.
It's too hard to call them because then you waited too long and then you look at the schmuck because you didn't have
Right.
to follow.
Well, what am I going to say? I can't do this because it's been too long and I know I should have. And then the next thing you know is you don't call them at all.
And it's always back here.
Yes, yes, yes. Which is why have a conversation up front. How do they like to be communicated with? Set some expectations about what your communication plan is, which would require that you have a process. Right? How difficult would it be? You know, typically I like to check in with folks who've shown some interest, and it's going to be, you know, a few months out. Usually I like to check in with them about every 4 to 6 weeks, just kind of see how things are going. Would that be okay with you? You know, I send an email out or have the conversation. This doesn't have to be what you create in your mind. You don't have to make assumptions. Ask people, because that's going to get rid of that thing in the back of your head where you're questioning it all the time, okay? Following up too often. Has that ever happened? People gotten irritated?
There's a fine line though, I'm telling you.
It is. It is. And how can you find out if that line for that person isn't right? Yeah. We can just ask. For whatever reason, for some reason, we don't talk about this. I don't know why. Right? I don't know why we don't talk about our follow-up plan, and we're going to be, it's almost like we want to keep it a secret, or like we just want to catch them off guard because that's the only time we think they're ever going to take our phone call, or we don't, I don't know why we don't do this, but we don't talk about it. And the very best way you can serve yourself and keep yourself from freaking out is by talking to people. Now, how many of you want to call and send a note or send an email because you're just checking in? Don't do that.
I say touch base. Hey, just touching base.
Just touching base. What does that mean exactly? You know?
You've just got to give them some value, right?
You've got to give them some value, right? You have to give them some value. Because this comes across as you only being interested in you and making the sale. There is nothing about this that sends a message that you are bringing value to them or that you care about them. Okay?
They can read between the lines.
Yes, we so underestimate people. We so underestimate people. Bring them value. You guys have so many different types of things that you can bring value to people. whether it's a listing, whether it's a new law, whether it's a new event, activity. I mean, there's a million things out there. Pick one. And I got to tell you, even if it's something they end up not caring about, it's better that you send that and they go, I wonder why they sent that to me, than for you just to be the checking in type. Okay? Does that answer your question about the note? Mm-hmm. Yep. And you know what? If it's a past client, if it's someone who has received your business card once, I'm not a really big fan of continuing to send a business card out. I have the same box of business cards for probably the past 4 years. You know why? Why do you think I still am using the very same box of business cards for 4 years?
The picture's good.
Great answer, Wanda. Great answer.
How big a box was it?
No, it was. Yeah, no, a normal, like one of the business card boxes. Yes. Why do you think I'm still, and I still have a lot left. I don't give them out very much. Let me ask you a question.
Now I get it.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. When I give somebody my contact information, who's in charge of the conversation now? They are. Do I want them to be in charge of that conversation, communication? No. I want to be in charge of it. It is infinitely more valuable for me to get someone's contact information than for me to share it with them. Just like if you send a business card to somebody and say, hey, if you know somebody, give them my name and information. No. I want them to give me their name and information. And it gives me a reason to call them and ask for that information. Okay?
So I can just leave those out?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah. Well, but you're talking to somebody who hasn't even used however many in 4 years, so. But really, it doesn't, there's not real value, because how often, if you've gotten a business card in the mail, have any of you kept them?
Well, so I might have kept the information if it was pertinent.
You might have put it in your phone.
Yeah, but otherwise,
You trash it. You throw it in the garbage.
it's like postcards.
I have an album of business cards in my phone, and so I know when I need it, and they're categorized, which is a little weird, but.
No, well, that's okay, but it's not the business card. People aren't going to save it like that, you know?
Okay, good.
Here's the other thing is we oftentimes send a message in our communication that we are only prospecting for their potential business. They are only valuable to us for their potential business, not because we care about their needs, okay? And this is really evident when we are not providing value, when we are not having any kind of a conversation with them outside of what can you do for me, okay? And I know that's the fear you have. And sometimes the people who are most fearful of that are the people who do exactly that. I don't know how it happens, but they get so nervous and caught up about what they're going to say, that's all they end up saying. And you know there's plenty of realtors out there, when anybody see them coming, everybody wants to hide, right? Why? Because they're going to talk about real estate to me, and that's all they're going to talk about. There are so many ways to talk about real estate that isn't about their potential business, that really shows you care about their needs.
9 times out of 10, they bring it up to you before you bring it up to them.
Exactly. Exactly. And then how you can pivot that conversation and it stay to them. You know, if they bring up real estate and the first thing out of your mouth is, yeah, do you know anybody I should talk to? No, talk to them about their needs. Okay? We've got to shift those conversations, especially in our follow-up. Okay? Any questions, comments, ideas that have come up for you right now?
I like how you're telling us to actually have that conversation with people. Is it okay if I follow up with you in another 4 weeks? Do you want, would you rather me call you sooner or later? And I think that's a great conversation, because I never have that.
No. I don't know why we feel like we've got to keep it a secret, but we shouldn't, right? Because people are going to tell you what works for them, and you're going to remember that. And you're not going to have that little gremlin in your head beating you up when you go to do the follow-up, right? How awesome is it to call somebody back when they say, yeah, you know what, call me that first week in September. Do you ever not call them back? Like, you're excited to call them back because they told you. Why don't we create that with everybody? Right?
Because you're scared they're going to tell you, no, please don't call me.
Yeah. And they're not. But if they do, aren't you kind of glad at least we've gotten it out of the air? Because you know what? The chances are if they don't want you to call back and you haven't given them permission to tell you no, you're going to keep wasting time following up. It just saves you some money via time, right? All right. Any other? Let's go over this, okay? We talked about this before in our processes. And one of the things I said, when we have a follow-up process, when we are working with our leads, one of the things we have to do is have a line in the sand. We have to let go. So this just talks about a couple of things, right? We've got to let go of false sense of hope. And what I would say is the best way to let go of this is to not create it to begin with. Okay? If you are not brand new, and you get so excited because somebody tells you they want you to do a listing presentation, there's a problem. And the problem is you're not contacting enough people. You don't have enough stuff going on. It shouldn't get you over the top, jumping up and down like you won the lottery if you get a possible deal. That should be a clear sign to you that you're not doing enough prospecting. Okay? Should you be glad? Yeah. But you can't just decide, because what that creates is this commission breath. It creates this sort of, oh my God, now I'm going to make money this quarter, right? And everything hinges on it, and the whole dynamic changes, right? And we project things on that person and what their intentions are that might not even be there. We have this thing, psychologically, confirmation bias. Does everybody know what that is? Confirmation bias is a psychological term that as humans, we tend to see things to confirm what we believe. Okay? So if we believe somebody's putting us off, we see those things that say they're putting us off. May not be true. But if we think it is, we interpret those things that support that belief. Okay? But if we have this false sense of hope and we think, oh, man, they're definitely buyers, then we're going to take the fact that they opened their emails and looked at some properties as proof that they're definitely buyers. I mean, you know, that kind of stuff happens in our head, whether we acknowledge it or not. So we've got to really let go of that false sense of hope, and that means check yourself. If you're getting overly excited about one deal, and you're not brand new, there's a problem. We got to do more. Yes, no, maybe. We know our favorite answer is yes. What's our next best favorite answer? No. Do you know what maybes are? Usually? Slow no's.
That could be a song, couldn't it?
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I can, yeah. But they are often slow no's, a complete waste of time. Now that doesn't, I'm not talking about those people who say, you know what, no, my husband's retiring in August of 2020, right? Like, that's not a maybe. That's a completely different conversation. You know, you know those maybes, and we keep hanging on. Well, maybe this property will let them go. Be bold enough to have a conversation with them to determine if you are a no or if you're a maybe. There is a term in sales, we call it a buying atmosphere. Do you guys remember? I used that term once before when we were talking about referrals. Do you remember me using that term, buying atmosphere? The fact of the matter is people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. Okay? How many of you ever bought something completely, ridiculously useless on Amazon? I have. I bought this little things that sit in the sand that you can put your cup in? Because I thought they're so clever. What a great idea. Ask me how many times I've taken them out of my cabinet. 0, right? There wasn't anybody on my computer like pushing me to buy those things. I didn't have somebody standing over my shoulder trying to sell me those things. But there is something inherent about us we like to buy, right? But as minute somebody tries to sell us something, we back off, don't we? So one of the things we have to make sure that we're constantly doing at different points in the sales cycle is creating a buying atmosphere. We want to create an atmosphere where we are allowing people to tell us no. We are inviting them to tell us no, and we are letting them know that it's okay to tell us no. Okay? When we are not doing that, we are fostering these maybes. They know they're not ever going to do blank, but they don't want to be mean to you. They don't want to be rude. And they think, well, you know, one day, maybe, but they know in their mind that's not really likely. We need to draw a line in the sand, okay? We've got to draw a line in the sand, and the best way to do that is with a buying atmosphere. And that's why with your follow-up process, if you have somebody that's reached out to you and wants to buy a property, have that conversation. You know, we've been talking about this and gone back and forth for a few months now, and it sounds like you're still a little bit on the fence. And, you know, if you've decided this is not going to be something that you're going to do right away, or if you've changed your mind, please let me know, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to keep bugging you, but I want to basically make sure that you're getting what you need. Is this something that you may have changed your mind? Tell me where you are with this. And for some reason, we're really scared because we're afraid of that no. Invite that. I have a colleague of mine who will say this when she's creating buying atmosphere sometimes. She goes, listen, she goes, it doesn't, if you're, you know, this is not something that's a fit for you, it's okay. I'm in sales. I mean, I had my feelings surgically removed, so you can't hurt my feelings. She says that, no kidding. And everybody laughs. I like that one. But it lets the pressure off, right? I draw a line in the sand. If I'm following up with people and trying to set an appointment, I will leave a voicemail. If I've left 3 voicemails, my next one, you know what, listen, I take a lot of pride in being pleasantly persistent, but I don't want to bug you. If this is something that you've changed your mind, it's fine. Just let me know, because otherwise I'll probably end up following up with you again next month. And sometimes people will text me back or reply back and they'll say, yeah, this is not a good time. Or, yeah, let me call you, or whatever. But that's me allowing them to say that to me, right? And I don't want to waste my time anymore. So figure out how you draw a line in the sand.
This all goes back to standards, right?
It does. Goes back to what, Wanda?
Standards.
Oh, standards.
Like, I'm not gonna put a buyer in my car unless you sign a buyer's brokerage agreement.
What if you don't have any?
Oh, goodness. All right.
That's that kind of a day.
Need those coaching calls again.
I don't believe that.
And one of the other reasons we don't want to draw a line in the sand comes back to the same reason why we don't want to let go of that false hope, and that's because we just don't have enough referrals in our pipeline. We don't have enough people in our pipeline. If you guys find out that you're holding on to people way too long, meet some more people for crying out loud.
No kidding. I know.
Do something.
It's really easy, though, to just hang.
It's so much more comfortable, but you are not doing yourself any favors.
I'm going to call all of my maybes and say, hey,
Yeah.
are you guys on board or not?
It's really, and they are going to appreciate the conversation. Times that taking it away actually causes them to be more interested.
But then I can get rid of
Yes, yes. And then all of a sudden you're going to go, wow, I need to do some prospecting, which is really what you should be thinking anyway.
So how do you start the conversations with these maybes that are really, we need to get rid of? I mean, how do you, because we're not following up, we're not touching base, we're not, you know, one of those things. Hey,
Just say, hey, no, No, just say, hey, listen, I noticed that your name came up again. And I know that we've talked a lot about, you know, that you might be looking this or you might be. And I guess what I'm wanting to know, because I know I'm spending a good amount of time kind of following up, and I don't know if this is bugging you or if you, because you may have decided this isn't a fit for you. This isn't something you're going to move forward with right now. And I guess I just wanted to know, because you don't certainly want my follow-up if you've decided you're not doing this, and I don't need to be wasting my time. But if this is just something you've changed your date on, let me know. Give me some information to tell me what to do and how to serve you in the best way, right? Either way, whatever you say is fine, really. It's not a big deal. I just don't want to.
And then you can add that part about
Yeah.
my feelings are surgically removed.
Yes.
Whatever you say is okay.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna hurt my one feeling.
You're right? But we've got to do this. And for those people who are ignoring you or you can't reach them and they are in that category, I would do it two different ways. Like, I do it via email and voicemail. Maybe that's just me, overkill, but like, I know that there are times people don't listen to their voicemail, so I don't want to leave it just on voicemail. I want to make sure that I'm sending an email too. Say, hey, just left you a voicemail like this, but just wanted to let you know, and then I lay it all out, right? If you want me to give you a call, email me back. Let me know when the best time might be for us to reconnect, or if, you know, and people will do that. Or they'll say, actually, no, not interested. That's fine. Okay? All right, how many people have a list of people that they're going to have this conversation with? Come on, hopefully, because I know everybody's got a group of people that they need to do this with. Free up your mind, free up your time. Move on to bigger and better people. Okay, guys? All right, questions. And create that in your process. Once you have this conversation, decide when this is naturally going to come up, because if you don't have a process for it, next year you're going to go, wow, I still have another 25 people that are these maybes that are hanging on. It's because you didn't have a process for getting rid of them in the first place. Create a process for yourself. Okay? Mine's after my kitchen sink voicemail message that I told you guys about. Remember how I leave a mystery message and then I'll do the kitchen sink and I'll just throw up all over them and tell them why I'm calling? Well, if they don't bite after that, then I do the other one and say, hey, I'm assuming you're not interested. Okay? That's kind of for me, so there's just, I'm clear.
You had the perfect one.
I did, I was hounding this guy whose property was not for sale, and I had a buyer that was so determined to buy it, and message after message after message, and finally my very last message was like, hey, shocking, Terry Hiller from Coldwell Banker again. I go, before you put a restraining order out on me, just call me back and let me know yes or no. And then I promise you I will stop bugging you.
Perfect.
And he literally called me back because I said, please don't put a
But she
restraining
sold
order.
it.
Yeah, and I sold the property.
Perfect.
Both sides
I love
obviously
that story.
did a great commission agreement.
That's awesome. Awesome.
It was freaky.
I had one of my colleagues sent, he shared with the team this little GIF that he had created. I think it's a meme. I don't know the difference between a GIF and a meme. I don't know. I get them all confused. But it was a picture of his dog with his hand up. And he said, sorry if I've offended you. Right? And because he had some people that weren't calling him back. And he was like, he thought they had had some great conversations. They had planned to follow up. And then they were like ghosting him. So he created this little thing and said, sorry if I've offended you. And then just typed a little text message and sent it to him. Right? And it worked beautifully. Because the fact is, we don't know why people are ignoring our calls. We create all these stories in our head, but we don't know. We've got to ask.
We're not their priority.
No, we're not. Just like with this guy, he needed some humor, and humor's a great way to break that sometimes. Love it, love it, love it. Man, two sides of a deal by telling them, don't put a restraining order out on me. That's pretty awesome, Terry. All right, so I've got a follow-up eval here for you guys. So I want you guys just to go through here, and I want you guys to answer some of these questions for yourself. And I'm going to say them to you because you might not be able to read them, so I'm going to read them out to you. One is, I immediately add new prospects into my CRM upon meeting them. And it could be IQ Office, it could be whatever system you have. But as soon as I meet them, I put them into my CRM. How would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5? I want you to give some thought to that.
5 being the
best. Like I do it every time. And obviously a 0 mean I never do it. Okay?
Can we get a copy of this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can take a picture, but I can send it to you too. Yeah, I will send it to you. Yeah. Number 2 is I add new prospects to my CRM every week. How many of you, if you're honest with yourself, know that you go a week or 2 or 3 and you haven't added anybody new into your circle? Yep, that's a problem. Right? That's huge, guys. Huge. Number 3, I keep track of and acknowledge events in my prospects and clients' lives, such as birthdays, anniversaries, and I do that through emails, calls, text, social media, or other avenues.
I get a 3 on that.
All right.
I tried to do that one.
Elaine's a solid 3. Good for you. And some people do this better than others. Like, you know, I'm going to pick on Josh again, right? This one wouldn't be nearly maybe as important for him as it would be for Alina's new, you know, what she discovered in her branding, right? Now, here's what's interesting for number 3. In order to do it, you have to know it. Goes back to these conversations that we're having. Number 4, I pay attention to personal interests of my prospects and clients that I can use for gift giving and cards, and I would say content here to develop rapport. Okay? Do you know how easy it is? We talked about Google Alerts. Do you know how easy it is on your, if you have maybe a tablet or something like that, to go into the news and type in a category, and it will just pull up all kinds of cool little articles about that topic?
How do you get people's birthdays?
You have to ask.
Yeah.
I don't wanna know.
Usually in conversation, and if not, when they're at closing, say, hey, you know, just to keep in touch with you, can I get your birthdays and your husband's birthday and your kid's birthday, you know, as far as you can go with that.
It really is how do you, it comes into what is your process, and if you know you want to send birthday cards, then that should be part of the process. When you, at some point, wherever it is, it could be at closing, it could be before, whatever it is. For some of you, you're not going to ever send a birthday card, so don't worry about it. But paying attention to their personal interests. I got to tell you, I remember I sent something to Ed one time about fencing, because I got to tell you, you guys know his grandkids, scholarship, I mean, big fencing people. Right? And way back in the day when he was coaching with me, I sent something to him about fencing because I didn't even know that was like a thing still, you know? But I knew how important it was to him and his grandkids, right? And I have no idea, but I'll bet it was actually meaningful to him. He acted like it was. I have to assume he was, right? That I just actually took a minute, said, oh, look, I didn't know this, and it was just a lighthearted thing, right? But I paid attention, and I knew that that was an interest, and I sent something, right? So if we hear something about that, it's really easy for us to take that extra teeny tiny step, and it didn't take me 5 minutes to do that for him. But what a message that kind of thing would send to somebody, right? I personalize my follow-up tactic based on my prospect or client. This goes right back to we got to know what they want, okay? We got to know what they want. We've got to ask. I consistently schedule or set reminders to follow up with prospects and clients periodically. Again, do you have a system? Got to have that system. You've got to have it implemented. All right. So right now what I would say is, based on those questions, if you took a picture of the slide, or if you want me to send it to you, just let me know. Email me, and Nikki will get it to you. But evaluate, rank yourself on each of those. Rank yourself on each of those questions, and decide which ones you want to take take action on. And again, this is just like the processes. Just do one at a time. We don't need to get all crazy. It's when we try and tackle too many things, we do nothing. Okay? So one at a time. So who has the one thing that they know they want to do and make an improvement on right now out of the gate? Wanda, what's yours?
I want to set up a program for past clients and closings that they get some kind of notification. Perfect. That I don't have to just put it in my head and keep calling. Perfect. Or whatever. I want something set up automatically.
Perfect.
So if anybody else in our office wants to work on that.
Perfect.
To get a
campaign that would just be.
I will tell you, I started using the buyer thing. I sent it to my last buyer, buyer's brokerage. I didn't even know what was gonna go to them, and they're loving it.
Yes.
And in fact, she responded to the first note and said, because I told her about a 1031 exchange, and she said, tell me about that program and all this. So I gave her a company to call. So they're reading this, they're getting ready to sell their other properties so they can buy down here. So that's
incredible value that she delivered.
And I'm gonna do that now for a bunch of sellers.
Yeah.
I wasn't using it.
Well, and is there a seller campaign in there
I think
for
so.
potential listings, potential sellers? Because I was gonna say, everybody has something that they use. Ranges from poor to excellent in execution, but they have things that they do with buyers. How many people, when you know somebody is thinking about selling, maybe next year, whatever, has a campaign that they put them on? One person. And she works for Sam, so I'm assuming,
I'm a buyer's agent.
Right. So think about putting together that same type of value. And that is where you guys could really excel, but we don't do it. If somebody knows they're going to be putting their house on the market in 6 months or a year, and you go, oh, well, I'll call you then. Hello? Give them some value between now and then. Put that together so you don't have to think about it. Even if it's nothing more than having a list of those potential people, you have some content that you've curated, and once a month you go through and send everybody this thing that you found. I don't know. Something is better than nothing. Okay? Who else has an action item that they're going to commit to doing? One thing on these processes. All right, Elaine.
I'm going to get more people in my CRM.
Yes! You know the next question is typically, how many you want to commit to? How many are you going to add? 2 people. Hey, that's better. That's better than 0. All right. Who else has got an action item that they're going to commit to doing?
2.
I'm gonna go for
Okay.
3.
Good.
I'm gonna weed out my maybes.
Love it. Love it. Weeding out your maybes. I love it. And I'll bet you find some yeses out of there. Bet you will. Anybody else have something they're going to commit to doing?
I'm gonna commit not to say I'm checking in.
Oh my God, thank you.
And say, what can I do to help you?
Yes, anything is better than I'm checking in or touching base. Or following up.
No more.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I read an article about a year ago, and I still struggle with this, but I'm constantly reminded every time I'm typing an email or writing something, and this isn't really as important for you and Jonathan, you and Chris, but as women, I want you to pay attention to how many times you are tempted to write the word just.
Oh, constantly.
I take it out.
I don't use but.
Think about that word just, though. Look, I know a lot of you just made this face like, oh my God, yeah. We're minimizing.
I find myself writing it, and then when I reread it, I take that
Yep. It psychologically, that is such a dismissive word, and we tend to use it a lot as women, much less so for men. So pay attention to that. Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, there you go.
It's not a word for me. I don't know why.
Good.
I like that word.
Good. Yeah. It somehow feels cozy and warm, and like I'm not trying to offend anybody, but for those of you who use it, you probably use it way too much, and you probably need to just get rid of it.
Just like you said.
Yeah, just get rid of it. It does soften it.
Reaching out.
Right.
Just reaching out.
Right. Right. How could you be mad at me? I'm just.
I do. Always.
So, anyway, little side note there. Anybody else have something they're willing to share that they're committing to doing? Got a list? Caitlin's got a list.
I need a
All right.
couple of years.
All right. Anybody have questions? Questions, comments, anything? All right. Next time, just so that you guys know, the next time that we meet is going to be our last meeting together. And we're going to actually be talking about kind of the internal game that everybody's playing. We're going to be talking about the motivation, the affirmations, the self-talk. We're going to be talking about those things that you guys need to do, each one of you individually, to kind of shore up your internal game. Because what we're going to do from there is you guys are going to dig in, and we're going to take whatever business plans or whatever goals you have, whatever vision that you have, and we're going to actually turn that into a concrete plan. And I told you this on day one, right? But not only are we going to create those visions, those goals, but we're going to turn them into what you're committing to doing. Okay? So next time is going to be a little different. We're going to be talking about kind of that internal game, so be prepared for that. It's not going to be tactical like we've been doing, but internally, okay? So be prepared to kind of talk about that a little bit, all right? All right, yes?
I wasn't here for the beginning. Did you guys have some good success stories from making calls and
yes.
saying next?
Terry, share your little trifecta.
Oh, I was telling everybody that I actually had a realtor hater person, and he could do everything himself, but we ended up having some conversations about property. So he's buying some property down in Summerlin. He referred his neighbor to me in Stirrup Key, so we'll be listing their property, and in return they're buying something else. So it's a trifecta. Nice. And he'll eventually be selling his property, so it's kind of cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I had one of my people that referred me to gave me a name, and the golden nugget, unfortunately, was a sad thing. Like her husband just died, and he had Alzheimer's, those kind of things. Is there a way to put that in a positive spin when you call them?
Yeah, and you can do it in the way of service to them. That's the way I would do it. Because if you're talking to somebody that owns a property and their husband has just died, say, you know, I was actually speaking to so-and-so, and I am, first of all, I just want to extend my condolences because they shared with me that your husband just died. And I absolutely wanted to reach out as quickly as I could because I know this is a tough time. And I'm actually a realtor, but what I want to know is there anything I can do to help you with this right now? Not, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, talk to you about real estate, but is there anything that I can do for you? I don't know if I can provide a resource to you, anything like that. Because, you know, in those kind of a situations, think about it. Like if it's a woman, her husband just died and she's older, maybe he did the repairs, maybe, who knows, there's a million different things, right? But it's really just reaching out in service to them.
Meet her face to face.
I probably could.
I mean, that'd be the way to do it, honestly.
So
I just went through that with someone, and she's not quite ready to list, but it really helped to have the face to face.
It's hard because even when they're a friend, we don't know what to say when we lose somebody. We feel like, oh, I don't know what to tell them. But I got to tell you, just showing up and saying I don't know what to say, or showing up and saying what can I do, is really benefit for them. And I've heard it over and over and over. And sometimes just hearing that and that you allowing them to speak about it, you might pick up a nugget on how you can serve them.
Okay, so you really don't talk about real estate that first call. Okay.
Sometimes they need a rough valuation just for estate purposes.
Exactly.
Things like that, and if you know,
Right.
they may not, you know,
They may not, they
might not
anything, right?
You know, but yeah.
And they're not
But
gonna
if they
make
need
they're not
that-
gonna make a decision right
And they're
after
not.
anyway.
And so again, when it comes to the follow-up, what we're going to say is, so listen, I know this is, you've probably got 100 things going through your head, and I know this is probably still a really tough time, and it will be for a long time. Would it be okay if I followed up with you and maybe called you in 6 or 8 weeks just to kind of check in and see if there's anything I can do for you, any resource I could provide to you? Would that be okay? Right? Just follow the rules. Okay? Awesome. Any questions? Everybody know when their call is going to be? Everybody got their date?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
I know, I probably did. I'm sorry. Nikki changed it. I'll blame it on
All
Nikki.
Nikki's
It's
fault.
all Nikki's fault. All right, guys, thank you so much, and I will see you next time, 2 weeks.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.